Hey everyone. I'm Nicole,
I'm Danae.
and we are so excited to welcome you to the second episode of Rhinestoned.
Rhinestoned. Yay! So
So
happy
proud
to
of
be
us.
here, sister.
Yeah, sticking through. Second week,
Here we
third
go.
week, fourth week. We are going to find the time to keep doing this. It is fun though, actually, I will say.
Oh, it
For
really
anyone who's
is.
thinking of starting one, it just kind of gives you something to look forward to during the week.
Sure do.
I don't
Sure
know.
do, especially when it's a slow week.
Oh my
But we'll talk
goodness.
about that later.
So it is November 4th. It's already
Mm.
November. It's stressing me out. It now
Yeah.
feels like forever ago, but how was your Halloween? Which was literally this past weekend. Feels like it was 2 weekends ago.
I had so many Halloween plans. I saw this TikTok of a dad trying to cheer up a mom by dressing up their baby in this
Oh,
elephant costume. And I was like, man, I'm going to get that elephant costume. I'm going to dress my baby up. No, she was in like a onesie in a gorilla cart going around, whatever.
hey, whatever.
Um, my other little one was a ghost. She was spooking it up. It was so
Classic.
funny. It was so funny. We went out with mom and dad, and this is my one funny anecdote. And mom went up with her to a couple of houses, right? Because we
Yeah,
were all kind of taking turns accompanying
as the
my
grandparents do.
as you do. And she's 4, so she needs that, right? She's not totally on the trick or treat like um script, right? She still doesn't know exactly what to say. Anyway, this is all to say they come back down, my daughter and mom, and my daughter's like, I'm not a vampire. She's a ghost. My mother is telling everyone at the doors that she's a vampire. And she's coming back down in a huff about Nanny's got this wrong. I'm not tell them I'm
Why
not a
was mom
vampire.
saying she's a vampire?
I think she was something spooky, you know.
Oh
So
my
her brain went to vampire. My mom is completely with it, so this was really a funny moment.
That is pretty funny, actually. I
But
love
that
the
was all to
ghost
say.
idea, though. I feel like that is like one of those classic Halloween costumes that kids these days don't understand the joy of because everything has to be so like
Oh,
fancy and crazy and extravagant now. And it's like, yeah, no, like sometimes you just put a sheet over you and you were a ghost. And that
and
was,
I like that she likes that too, right? Because I think even at 4, it starts where you want to be a pop star, you want to be a cheerleader, you want to be, which are great.
yeah.
Nothing against that. I just love the fact that she's like, no, I want to be a ghost. I went to her Halloween parade, and I can't tell you, I don't know if you saw that K-pop Demon Hunter, but that
Oh, yeah.
was the costume. Every girl had the braid and
Oh, I have been seeing a lot of that. Very
it
popular.
was cute. When it's a bunch of 4 and 5 and 6 year olds, it's the cutest little costume. What
No,
did
I
you
think
do,
that is so,
sister?
that's so cute.
But
That sounds fun. Yeah, so wait, did you guys go trick-or-treating on Halloween proper then? Yeah, right.
we went
Like
trick or treating.
Halloween night.
Um,
Was it
yeah,
busy?
it was
I did see, I wanted to ask you, I saw something, I think it was like some article or maybe it was a TikTok, I don't know, but it said that like trick-or-treating is dead, like
not here.
as a thing. Okay, good to know.
Not here, girly girl. No, they were out and about. And what I love is that I don't know if it's a where I live thing. I'm sure in other places this is what they do too. But it used to kind of be that everyone was behind the door,
Yeah,
right? We were talking about the trunk or treat thing. I don't
totally.
subscribe to that. But what I do like is what people will do now is they'll take like a fire pit and they'll just sit out in their drive
Yeah, that's
way,
fun.
right? And maybe set up like a table, like a couple people of our street will set up a table. You can get like a coloring book or this or that instead of your traditional candy. So that makes I think that's a little bit of both worlds, that
Yeah.
compromise, right? Where it's like, okay, now you're not going to someone's door and not knowing what's behind it. They're out front, but you're also not doing a trunk or treat. So we did that and the neighborhood was jumping.
That's
Suburbia
great
still apparently
though.
loves trick or treating.
Well, that makes me really happy to hear. We talked about it on the pod last week, and I think it made me really sad actually to see that because, as we spoke about, like those are some of our, best and worst memories growing up is
I know.
trick-or-treating and I also think that, it is sad with like just, safety issues with going up to people's houses these days, and the world has changed so much. But I do feel like trick-or-treating is like a great tool for kids in a lot of ways. Like I
Absolutely.
remember you know, you and I were both, I think, kind of like independent kids, maybe me a little bit more than you, and that I was always like wanting to run off or be the bigger girl than I really was. And I remember like, you know, some of those first times trick or treating, like it's a good kind of skill that you're developing as a kid that you have to like walk up,
Yep.
talk to a stranger, right?
Yep.
Have a polite exchange in return for getting something, you know. Um, so that's why I hope
Absolutely.
it doesn't ever like fully go away because I actually think it's such a great way to teach kids how to, you know, interact with strangers, how to kind of, you
I
know,
agree. It's so funny because my husband sent me the something the other day on Instagram Reels because my husband will not be on TikTok. He
no
is
TikTok.
Instagram Reel holdout. I love that
I didn't
about him.
know that we had that in common. This is why I get along with my brother-in-law so well, though. You
Wait,
know,
you
I'm
didn't
not
know?
really on TikTok. I'm still not really on TikTok. Like you know, and I know that needs to change,
Don't
but I don't
don't
know.
go on it.
I just don't, I don't, you know, anyways, continue to
No, but your screen time will increase to a point where, anyway, this is all to say, he sent me something the other day on Instagram Reels, and it was just giving kind of advice for exactly what you're talking about. And one of them was, and he said, let's do this with our oldest, ordering at a restaurant. Let her order for the whole table, not just for herself. Tell her what we want off the menu. Let her use that as a guide. She's great at memorization. If we read her a book, she's basically, you know,
parroting it back.
thank you. So yes, I completely agree. Find those small moments to encourage independence because that's
Yeah.
ultimately what we're here to do, right? Is
Oh,
get
I
them
love
to a
that.
place where they can
I
go
think that's
away
such a
from
great
us.
idea too with the ordering, you know, because they say that that's what Gen Z is struggling with, you know,
I
is
have heard.
like ability to go up and talk to people and you know, and I honestly don't blame them for that. I feel really bad. I feel like it's like just a product of growing up with social media and like what did any of us expect, you know? Like
Oh,
even as, you know, millennials and, you know, Gen X, boomers, like you go out anywhere in the world, everyone's in their phone, right? So I think even for those of us who had those skill sets, they've eroded for sure.
well, I think about it all the time, and I could talk about this at length because it's something as a parent you really have to challenge yourself to do. This can't be your existence.
Yeah.
You know, your kids are looking at you on the couch. You're like, this is a scenario I deal with, right? She's watching something I have no interest in watching, but I want to give her the big television because
Yeah.
we're not TV in the room people, kids rooms, excuse me. I'll have my TV in my room. I'm a big girl. I
You're
earned
allowed.
it. I'm allowed. Daddy says if I'm good, that's from vacation. No one will know that. Okay, so I don't know what my point was, but oh, she's watching something on the big screen television, and I'm, you know, my tendency is to be looking at my phone, and then I realize, but that's a lasting image for her. I did not grow up
Yeah.
looking over at my mother on a couch and my
No.
mom doing this. My mom was like up, out. If she, you know what I
Bouncing
mean, like
around.
right, flittering
Yeah.
around, finding something to do, or out with friends, you know. So anyway,
Yeah.
just
No, it's
a
true.
note.
Yeah, you gotta practice what you preach. It's hard. Makes it all of
Tell
this
me,
makes it convenient for us.
it
Yes, so
does.
my Halloween, as
Miss
I mentioned,
Frida.
yes, as I had mentioned on the pod last week, I was gonna have kind of one night that I was expecting to be a little bit crazier, and then another more chill, like millennial night, shall we say. No, but it was a great time. Friday night, Halloween proper, went out to my boyfriend's friend's house party, which was out in Bushwick. I used to live in Bushwick, so that was kind of fun. Just being out there again. It was completely mobbed. Like, I mean, it was just
Really?
crazy seeing
What
Bushwick
makes
lights
it
up.
fun?
It makes it fun for sure, but it's like it is so interesting now. Like I've lived in the city the last couple of years, and you know, I think I mentioned on the pod last week, I've been in New York like 20 years now. I spent most of those years living in Brooklyn. And I think now living in the city the last 2 years, it's like when you go back to Brooklyn, it is almost like culture shock, you know? It's like
Mm,
you start to understand in a different way the people that are like, oh, I'm never going to Brooklyn, you know? But
right.
no, it was a lot of fun. The house party was a lot of fun. Yeah, my boyfriend and I dressed up as I was Cupid and he was Love Struck. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh,
And after the house party, we went to like this club nearby. I guess like people had kind of voted, that's where they wanted to go. It was so intense and, just like one of those experiences where you're like, yep, I'm in my 30s. Like,
Okay,
for
here we are. We've
sure.
arrived.
But, I actually will say I feel better that, like, even his friends weren't really liking the music. It was, like, very, like,
Mm,
hardcore, like, dubstep, EDM, like, just, like, again, that music that almost, like, to me, like, gives you anxiety because it's just, like,
100%.
feels like the whole, like, building is going to crash in on you.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
no, it was very interesting. They had this woman hanging from the ceiling in chains, which was,
Love
like,
a hanging woman from the ceiling in chains.
I mean, that was definitely very entertaining. But my favorite part was, and I am not ashamed to admit this, that even though I get frustrated that I do think Gen Z like wants to be us, I also seek their approval. And I had
Every day.
3 different Gen Z girls come up to me and say something about my appearance, my costume, how good I
Mhm,
looked.
mhm.
It's just so validating as an over 35, right? You're just like, me? That's who what? Okay, sure, I'll take it. So, yeah,
Relevancy? Nom, 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 nom.
100%. So validating. But, it's funny too, like, I had this funny encounter. There was, like, this girl, standing in front of me and my boyfriend, and I was, I assume she was with her boyfriend. She was the first
Mm.
one to turn around out of nowhere, and say something to me, and I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet of her." So then I'm just sort of watching them because I didn't wanna assume something, right? So I'm watching them and finally I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna ask her. I was like, is that your boyfriend? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, let me take a picture of you. And you would have thought that I had offered her the world. Like, I don't know what is happening with Gen Z and like not
I love
talking
that.
to each other, not mingling,
Yeah.
not like just being a friend. And I don't, this is like a generalization because again, it's not like I'm hanging out with people in their 20s all the time. And I'm probably wrong about this. I'm sure they're out there taking photos of each other all the time. But I don't know. It felt like one of those moments where I was like, she just seemed so shocked that like a
Mhm.
stranger was offering to do something and like
Yeah.
the joy that had brought her after when she was looking at the photos was just
I mean,
hysterical.
as a millennial, I have to tell you, some of the best relationships I've ever had are with people I've shared one singular drunken Uber ride with.
A
You know
hundred
what I mean?
percent. That's like
It's
the
like,
whole
what
fun of
is
the whole thing.
Amanda doing?
Totally. So I think like I don't know, it's
That's
just that
girlhood.
that's the reminder to just, like when you're out in the world, talk to people, man. We've
Talk to
really just
people.
lost the art. And sometimes something so small like offering to take a photo is really gonna like make someone's night. So, anyways, that was fun.
Absolutely.
Tried to make it to like a late night diner, couldn't figure out the Uber situation. It was crazy. So just went back. And then Saturday was this millennial party I was talking about on the pod
Mhm.
last week. It happens like 5 to 10. It was their first ever dead celebrity ball. And I went as Frida Kahlo, which was so
It
fun.
was so good, you
There was actually
guys.
like 5 other Frida Kahlos there. I took a picture with
Stop it.
one of them. Actually, like the second we walked in, we ran into a Frida Kahlo. So I like took a picture with another one. They did a costume contest. There was a Frida Kahlo that joined the costume contest.
Did you do it? You
So
didn't do the costume contest.
I didn't, but to the point of like, it's just being fun when people are talking to you. This guy turned around to me when the Frida Kahlo was up on the stage and was like, you look better though. It's like, thanks.
Give it to me.
I'm like, but
Didn't ask, but thank you.
but but it was really cool. They had like, Michael Jackson impersonators, Whitney Houston. It was all kind of themed into, the dead celebrity, so the music even was all like pop stars that have passed away and things like that. So it was
Fun.
a really good time. And they were playing all of the millennial classics, all of the we got to the window, to the wall, but then you're also getting like, all of the kind of like what I would call Danae music.
Oh, tell me.
Yeah,
Give me
yeah. You listeners should definitely know that while both of us are huge music people, and for the most part, we have very similar tastes. And I do
agree.
still I would say we still like each other's music. It's just different
Yes.
what we spend our time listening to. So
Yes.
growing up, you were much more into what were we even calling it back then? Like emo rock,
Alternative.
alternative, and there's
Yeah.
definitely some of those classic millennial songs that come on and people were just screaming the lyrics at the top of their lungs, so
I
that was
I
fun
gotta
too.
say, I've been sending Nicole, and I think she's really good about indulging me in my little Spotify shares. But yes, like when I was growing up, I think the light version of that was like Taking Back Sunday and
Yeah,
bands in that vein. And then as I got older and my boyfriends changed, that kind of became things like Tool, right? So then I got a
even
little bit even
yep.
more like heavy metal. Deftones is from Central California, interesting enough. And so I've been sending my sister a lot of Sleep Token. So that will be my contribution. I don't have a mug to share today, but I will share. Anyone who is looking for a little bit of that like millennial angsty like two singers type
Yeah,
of
we
thing,
love the
like
millennial names. Yeah.
yeah, like one's keeping the beat and then the next one just comes in and starts screaming a lyric and you're like, okay, the song is going in a completely different direction and I love it. Sleep Token.
Yeah.
That is my that's my contribution for today.
Yeah. No,
That
so
sounds
it
like
was
such
it was
a good
fun.
Halloween.
No, it
I'm so glad
was.
you like that.
It's also, last thing I'll say, it is really interesting being at these millennial parties too, and just seeing like what the makeup of people is, and also just like, I don't know, just like the range of like friendship groups and things like that. It
Yeah.
is sort of fascinating. So shout out to Matinee. I think they're doing a really good job with those events. But yeah, it was a fun
You know,
Halloween.
that's such a great point as I think about like, we're not going to talk about this. I'm just throwing this out there. Sometimes when you're married, people will say like, "Oh, like how do you keep the spark alive or whatever?" And one thing I have to say, it's not just like my opinion, just throwing this out there. It's not just about date night, right? Because date night you can do in your house. You could have a date night that's in your backyard, and you can get that fancy. But I really do encourage people to go out into the world because sometimes that's exactly what it is. It's like a little bit of people watching. It's a little bit of
Totally.
like, even just getting it going can sometimes happen by like going out and just seeing people and seeing how people interact. And I honestly do feel, because I'm going to blame COVID for that, that it got us all really comfortable. Just like, I can do it at my house. I
Yeah.
can make that magic at home. And it's like, you can't.
No. You have to change of scenery. I agree.
Change
I'm
the
a big
scenery.
believer in that. I think it's
You
so
got to
important.
do it.
And especially, yeah, I think to your point too, for relationships and those types of environments, like it's good to go out into the world and like see someone maybe look at your partner and be reminded that like there's
Totally.
whatever. It's yeah, I think it's really important to not lose that stuff. That's why millennials still be partying.
Hello. We're still out there. We're trying to make it happen. We're not letting we're raging against the dying of the light. Go on.
Be so sad. Well, now we are in November, which I
Mm.
have to be honest, just kind of making me a little bit sad. I cannot believe, like, not that I love the holidays. So I'm excited for Thanksgiving and all of that, but it is a little bit crazy that we're almost at this point. But I thought we would do like, let's talk about some quick celebrity news. Like, there's
I
been
love it.
interesting things. I think most recently today, did you see, drum roll, people finally announced their sexiest man alive, and it is
George Clooney.
Jonathan Bailey. That would have been the
Jonathan
millennial answer.
Bailey.
That's who we grew up seeing win sexiest man alive.
Year after year after year.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're like, I guess. And that's why we still think he's sexy, because it just got like
100%.
beaten into us.
Yeah, it was just like, who else? But
Okay,
yeah,
so
Jonathan,
that,
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
well, before I
Expected?
get into my thoughts, what's your relationship with Wicked?
With Wicked?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't, this is gonna be another like unpopular like
No,
opinion,
no.
probably.
Mm,
I don't understand the obsession with Wicked personally,
okay.
which
Okay.
is a dangerous thing to admit living here in New York,
Yeah.
because New Yorkers, I've realized a lot of them are pretty Wicked obsessed. And I don't know, maybe it is because it was like on Broadway for so long. So when
Mhm.
I first moved to New York, my freshman year, I remember that was my first experience with um just being around generational wealth, shall we say, right? Like
Okay.
kids who were able to make things happen fast. And
Mm.
I remember, I think it was like a girl on either like the same floor as us, or she was in the same building as us. Don't remember how we became friends with her. But I remember one night we all heard from her, hey, my dad has like, I swear it was like 20 tickets to Wicked or something crazy. Because I remember there was like a group of us. Okay. It was at least 10 people. Do you want to go? And so we were all like, yeah, free Broadway tickets, like sure. But
I never knew the story.
I had no idea what it was outside of like, this is inspired by or linked to,
Right.
Wizard of Oz. So I actually saw on Wicked on Broadway.
I had no idea. I'm so
Yeah.
glad I asked. Do
Yeah,
you
that would have
remember
been like
it?
2005, 2006. So I think it had,
Okay.
I think I saw Adina Menzel, right? Because I think she would have been, yeah, I should go
That
back
would
and
have been
see it.
early run.
Like, yeah, like now actually I'm curious. I wonder if, how quickly.
Oh, I'm
Who
sure it'll come up. It'll come up quick.
was it?
Oh my
I
God,
think that would have been,
that's like epic. I wonder if you still have the playbill.
or no, maybe it wasn't. Maybe was it Dina? Let's see.
She was early. She would have been.
Megan Hilty as Glinda. That actually I do remember.
Now tell me, Ernest.
Shoshana Bean was Elphaba and Megan. Okay, so I was wrong.
I mean, Megan Hilty is still a big one, though.
And that
Didn't
was
we
and
see?
she was incredible, actually. Like her I do remember very well. So, then the movie came out. My boyfriend
Right.
wanted to watch it. We didn't go see it in the
Mhm.
theater. But he was like, let's watch it. We watched it. I was so bored. I don't know. I get it, but I don't get it. Are you where do you sit on this? I feel like you're
Same. I really wanted to get it because it feels like something I would like. I
Yes,
do
that's what
love,
everyone has said to me when I talk to them about it. Really?
right?
You just seem like someone that would really like that. And I'm like, it's
And
not.
I thought I would. I mean, that's not fair to say. I don't love a musical film, but I like one of my favorite films is Walk the Line, but maybe that's different because it's not a musical. It's not Broadway,
Yeah.
right? But it's music throughout. That's a jukebox musical, I think is what they
Yeah.
would call that, right? Because you're
Yeah.
listening to songs that you know. But I asked that just because I couldn't even get to a point where I saw Bailey in the movie, so I
Okay. See,
never.
I did see him. I saw him, so I can attest.
Okay.
He's
And
there.
I think a lot of the hype bait in the last year is really coming from his role of playing that like debonair
Yeah.
prince or something like that. So unfortunately, I'm a little bit out of the Jonathan Bailey game.
But
I
also,
don't.
I think some of it is Bridgerton too, right? Like people, I think are
Oh, the
so,
longing, the longing, the so many TikToks cuts of him looking at that woman longingly.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
that's probably how I know him the best. And in that
Okay.
context, I would say
Sexy.
totally deserving.
Yes.
I didn't find him as attractive in Wicked, but I don't know that he was meant to be giving off the same sort of sex appeal in Wicked as he was.
Well,
I think the
here's what
bigger
I'll
thing
say.
is who else would they have picked?
Glenn Powell. And
But
that's the
like,
thing.
is
And
Glenn Powell really that sexy?
no, no. And Glenn Powell is one of those people where I was telling my husband the other day, I was like, you really have to give it to Glenn Powell because Glenn Powell so obviously wanted to be Glenn Powell and fought tooth and nail. I mean, that guy's career has been on the rocks once or twice, and he has clawed his way into relevancy. And I'll watch a movie with Glenn Powell and it just for that.
Yeah.
Just for
Oh,
just
I do
the
enjoy him. I just don't,
that
to
would have been
me,
my
there's
only other thought. Just because he's so on, he feels so, or I guess like a Jacob Elordi, something like that. But I
yeah,
don't even think that Jacob Elordi would participate. I think his publicist would say,
no.
people is not relevant to I don't need people.
I
I
mean,
mean, yes, I don't know,
I
maybe.
feel like good press is good press, Like at the end of the day, it's still exposure for any of these actors. I think that would be so silly to recuse yourself from like that sort of process. But yeah, I agree. I think that, sure, is he deserving? Yes. Um, in terms of like having a broad swath of like other potentials. I don't
I don't
know.
know.
Maybe we maybe should do some more research. I feel like we're probably overlooking someone obvious.
Also, I think my tastes are so, and listen, to me, we're borderline like, he's probably, I mean, he's too young for me, I think. Like, he is, how old is Timmy? No one knows. Anyway, that would be my sexiest man alive. And he's barely, I mean, he looks, you know,
Yeah,
you know,
I
I
still
like
think
it a lot.
that
Yeah.
sexy. I just don't.
No, I don't think that he's
I'll
for the
never, I'll
masses.
never get that.
No.
All right. Well,
But
listen,
kudos to Jonathan. We're proud of you.
yeah, go
Go
you.
you.
Hopefully you can use that to leverage yourself into another movie soon. What else is
We hope
happening?
so. Tell
Oh,
me.
did you see that apparently Justin Baldoni's countersuit was dismissed?
Yeah, what do we think? I mean, we haven't even, the funny thing is that we really haven't talked about the
Well,
Blake life
this
ever.
has been it's been just happening, I think, in the background where she's still been like going through this whole process with him. But this is like, it's interesting because when all of this first started up, there was so much like, oh, I'm Team Blake, I'm Team Justin, like blah, 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 blah.
Mm,
And, we could go hours and hours, I think, on that. But I think that for the outcome to be what it is, to me, is crazy because really both of them have lost in this whole battle,
100%.
right? He now has no legal victory coming his way. And for her, the reputational damage, I think, of like going through, with this lawsuit and having to kind of make the decision to shine a light on all of this and bring it, whatever. Um, I don't even know if you can quantify,
Mm,
how that's impacted. So that's sort of the ironic thing, it's like you have two people, both of them feel like they were wrong. And in the end, in trying to be right, I think actually they both have suffered immensely. I don't see Justin
100%.
Baldoni working again anytime soon. Like Lively's in a different position because I think that, she still does have a fan base that's loyal and maybe in some ways this provides validation or vindication for her. Um, but I think what happened through this process is that people got to see some of her truth, and I think that's the part that you're not going to be able to take back. Is
Well,
how she navigated this whole thing and the
yeah,
stories that leaked out about how this all went down and even, other things that we just know to be true. She's clearly not as close with Taylor Swift anymore. Um, so it just those are the things I think you're just like not going to be able to unwind through Blake Lively.
and a little bit of a tangent, but I think similarly related. I was watching, there was a New York Times article interview with Jennifer Lawrence that came out last week, and it was accompanied by the video of the interview itself. So if you don't want to read it, go ahead and check out the video on YouTube. But there was a point that she was making too, because the interviewer was asking her, what do you regret about those early years? And she was kind of saying everything a little bit. I mean, to put a
Yeah.
bow on it. And just saying that, like, moving forward, she feels, especially now politically, right? She doesn't need to necessarily say anything because her viewpoint is that she is an actor and she is here to immerse herself in these different
Yeah.
characters. And if we're all thinking about the fact that she is siding with this, side of the government or this, whatever bill or election, that it'll take people out of it. And I think that that goes exactly to Justin and Blake. It's going to be a long time before either of them are able to grace my screen and me not be thinking about, and even to take that a step further, like, sorry, I don't know what happened. I assume that's why it's in court to figure out what did. So everything that we're saying here on Rhinestone is alleged. But I think it even takes you out of it in a way where it's like, if I'm watching Justin in a new scene with a new woman, so say he's in a love scene, right? As a watcher of that, I might be thinking like, oh, I wonder what that actress's experience with him was,
Yeah,
right? Like, is
totally.
she safe in this scene? Was this you know, is the love scene I'm watching maybe something where I'm literally watching like an actress be uncomfortable? I would feel the same way with Blake similarly, right?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah,
it's
like,
kind of
or
to your point.
exactly what, like, if you're a director working with Blake, you're gonna be looking over your
Thank
shoulder
you.
the whole time. So
Absolutely.
I think that's where,
Absolutely.
like, it's unfortunate, but you have to, I think sometimes with these like court cases, you have to ask yourself, like, is it going to be worth it in the end? And I know when she went on this journey, it was a lot of her messaging, like, she's doing this to stand up for women and blah, blah, blah. But I think, like, when the outcome is what it is, like, people have sort of forgotten about this now. Like, I'm just not convinced that her, trying to fight this and continuing to fight this has actually helped her reach the goal that, she stated at the beginning of this process.
No,
I
no,
don't know. It's an
absolutely not.
interesting one. We'll see.
I
What
think also, though, I will just say on that, there were certain things that happened. I think like the launching of the shampoos and the conditioners and stuff like that too. It just did feel like, oh my God, if all of this is really happening, we're also in mega capitalistic mode as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's that right? That's like that dichotomy, I guess, where it does become a little bit like what was going on during this time because it felt like a lot of just like great promotion, happy faces, we're selling
Yeah.
shampoo, but I guess that was all masking just the most terrible time in Blake's life, right?
I
So
guess. I mean, look, if I had to guess, probably, I mean, to give her the benefit of the doubt, I think that a lot of those things were probably pre-planned, right?
so fair.
But I think that this case probably made the context around them like really awkward, right? Like, I'm sure she
Yeah.
had been planning that hair care launch for like years, you know?
Where is that, by the
And then
way?
you're just, I don't know, every once in a while I'll see some reel pop up where it's like she's still
Okay.
pushing it or something, but I don't know. I'd be very skeptical of a product like that, truthfully. And actually, some of the tutorial videos I've watched her do, I'm just like,
What are we doing?
well, I think, the biggest thing, and, this is interesting because I bought Beyonce's hair care line recently.
Oh, did you?
Um,
What'd we think?
I haven't been using it consistently, so I feel
Okay.
like I can't really share honestly. I bought like these hair oil drops that are supposed to like help with like hair regrowth, and I think they're called edge drops or something like that. But I
I've
think
heard
the
of
thing
those.
with like Lively is like sometimes what's hard with celebrities is like it's a fine line, right? Like they start selling a certain product because they're known for the thing that that product helps,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
sometimes that can be really believable and that can help them, to be successful in selling that product. I think other times though, depending on what those products are, it doesn't come across as authentic because you as a consumer know that that person just is genetically blessed, right? And I think with a lot of what I've seen of her, promos for her products and things like that, there's nothing about it that has left me thinking like that's going to help my hair look amazing. I get to the end of all of her videos and think like you just have amazing hair. Like
It's so
always
good.
always have.
Always
It's been a
will.
signature all the way since like back to Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Like it's
Yes.
like probably 30% of the reason why you've gotten roles. Like
100%.
you just have great hair, okay? Like me buying your product is not going to make me have your hair.
No,
And I
I
know
know.
that,
Yeah.
so anyways.
You know
No.
what though? That's on being a conscious consumer.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about because you can't spend your money everywhere. You do have to be smart about where you put your dollar, especially now. You know,
Yeah.
support what you want to support, put your money where you want to put your money. And if it doesn't feel authentic to you, literally skip it. These people are not hurting for cash.
No,
So,
definitely
yeah.
not.
I'm interested to hear
So
the edge drops work though.
yeah, I
You'll have to
definitely
use those for a couple of months, I assume.
I think so. I think it
Yeah.
has like some consistent
It's a
use.
long-term investment. Yeah.
Other things that have happened in
Tell me.
the celebrity relationship world. Sophie
Ooh.
Turner is now dating Chris Martin.
And I read something the other day that said that him and Dakota Johnson were together for 8 years. Tell me
Yeah.
that's not true.
No, they were. They definitely were. And
I thought that was a 3 year blip.
no, definitely wasn't. You know what I've realized though?
That's
Dakota
all her
Johnson
good years. No,
is
I'm just kidding. There are no good years. They're all good years.
I mean, I doubt the last couple ones were, let's be real. But
Yeah.
have you realized just how divisive Dakota Johnson is?
I haven't seen anything like it.
I've
And
realized
yet the
that
woman,
a lot
she's
lately.
booked and busy.
People really don't like her. I like her. I don't understand why people don't like her. And she gets like a lot of like
I love her.
bad actress. Like, I guess, but I still really like watching her on screen. Like, so anyways, I have to give everyone a movie recommendation. Last night I watched this movie called
Ooh.
Splitsville that Dakota
Okay.
Johnson is in. And also, what is that actress's name who's dating Jason Momoa right now? She's
Oh,
very
she's
pretty.
lovely.
I
She's so
I don't think
gorgeous.
I've seen her in
I
something.
don't know her name, but
I
she
feel like
is
it's like
gorgeous.
I feel like it's like
But
a
of course she would be
thing.
gorgeous.
Oh, yes. Adria Arjona. I don't know if I'm saying her last name.
Adria.
Adria. That's a really pretty
Adria.
name,
That's a, I mean,
Adria.
gorgeous name for a gorgeous gal.
So she's in this movie as well. But the premise is very, I don't want to give too much away, but I did try to
Okay.
be really interesting. Kyle Marvin is the lead actor, and basically he's married to Adria, and the movie kind of starts out, they're like getting ready to go on a couple's vacation, and she tells him that she wants a divorce, and then from there just like complete chaos kind of
Got it.
ensues. He immediately like seeks refuge and emotional support with his best friend who is married to Dakota Johnson. And he soon finds out that his best friend's marriage, who he thinks is so perfect, they're so happy, they actually are in an open marriage. And from there it just spirals.
Oh, okay.
Hilarious movie. Like the physical comedy was just like totally unexpected. So I
Oh,
have
I'm
to,
excited.
but I think like again, I got to the end of it last night and I was like, man, why do people hate Dakota Johnson? I loved her in this movie. Like for me, she carried the film. But this whole Sophie Turner, Chris Martin thing, it weirds me out if I'm
Tell
being
me.
honest. Well, okay, actually, maybe before I make my point, let me see. How old is Dakota Johnson now? How old
37.
do you think she is? Because I thought she was
30.
like around our age. Yeah, okay, so she's 36.
Okay.
Sophie Turner is 29. And
That's better than
Chris
I thought. I wasn't gonna
and
lie to you. I thought Sophie Turner.
Chris Martin is 48. So, you know, I think what's interesting about it, right, is it sort of like highlights just how crazy everything is these days in terms of relationships and maturity and age and whether that matters. Because I think you could make the argument, and a lot of women would, that like it's unacceptable that he's dating a 29-year-old. Someone like Dakota Johnson, who's 36, is like more her speed. Okay. But here's a distinct difference between Dakota Johnson and Sophie Turner. Sophie Turner is a mother.
Mm.
Dakota Johnson is not. So from that
Mhm.
standpoint, one could argue her and Chris Martin actually have a lot more in common. They're both
100%.
co-parenting. We don't know if Chris Martin still wants more children. As a 48-year-old man, that's well within
Sure
his
he
right
does.
to still have more kids someday. So, it's getting really interesting in that I think we're seeing these Hollywood relationships reflect a lot of what's happening in the real world for people too, where it's kind of like, and this is where I've been struggling with the age argument lately. It's like, well, who's to say, right? I mean, I
Who's
think if
to
she was like
say?
21, then it would maybe be a little bit more like, the grooming conversation and all of that. But I mean, she's just a young mother approaching 30,
Yeah.
18-year difference. I mean,
I completely agree with you. I think once we get over a certain age, and I feel like 30 is that sweet spot, because I think we know now frontal lobe develops fully at 25, 27,
yeah.
depending upon just who you are. You are a grown woman. If you want to date a 68-year-old, you go ahead. There is nothing that I think is weird about that. Now, I wonder what is so amazing about Chris Martin, but then again, like, you have to remember, this guy can sit at the edge of your bed and write you a song. You know what I
Well,
mean?
see,
And
I'm so messed up because I was gonna say what's so great about Sophie Turner that sorry. I'm
I
sorry. Sophie
know.
Turner
No,
fans. I'm just
yeah.
like I have no if she has been in things post Game of Thrones, then I apologize, but not things that I have seen. So in my mind, Chris Martin is more of the catch for sure.
But, one thing that I will say, and I don't know who I was talking to about the other day, but listen, this is a little bit of me needing to just embrace like where we are culturally. I was a little taken aback that our new bachelorette is going to be someone who is, you know, a blended family, let's
Yeah.
say,
Yes.
beautiful blended family. I was like, okay, we're doing that. And there are men presumably who are quite literally signing up to be a part of that. So I
Well,
think
okay, so now that you've gone there though, I
tell me,
let's spend just a minute talking about this actually
you want to
because
touch on it?
I think we both are gonna have, yeah, definitely probably similar views. But so I was shocked as well. Um, and my issue with it actually has nothing to do with the fact that she has a blended family. I think for those of us who watch The Secret Lives of Mormons, um, my bigger issue with it is that I think it requires, for anyone who really knows her, I think it
Mhm.
requires too much suspension of disbelief for the audience in that this is not a woman that has ever in any way showed us that what she is longing for is a deep commitment
Right,
again.
right,
And I know that sometimes
right.
she will say things like that on the show, but I think if
Uh-huh.
anyone is really watching the show and really watching her and learning about her and listening to her and all of that, like, no offense, she just does not strike me as someone who is really that concerned about finding that in her life. I think that when she talks about wanting it, it's because it's just a source of security. I've never seen her talk about it in terms of like, I'm looking for my romance, my, fairy tale, my whatever. And so, to me, the fact that she has some kids already, like, great. I think that's fabulous if the Bachelor franchise, wants to start embracing, single people who have baggage, because let's be real, that is more reflective of what's happening in the world, right? Like people
Absolutely.
are coming into relationships and marriages with baggage. People are getting
Yeah.
married later, they're having kids later. As that starts to occur, we would all be silly to think that that means people are going to come into relationships and not have a history, right? But I just find it more hard to believe that we're supposed to sit there and watch her actually like care about getting the proposal. Like it's just, to me, this is like not who that woman is. And that's
No,
I think the part that was like the most confusing to me. It's not that she has
no.
these kids, it's that I don't see her as a lover girl. Sorry, I said it.
Oh, well, Love is Blind, when Love is Blind was on, I saw this TikTok and they were saying, never forget that they are doing psychological evaluations.
Oh
That
yeah.
doesn't mean that they're evaluating for psychologically sound people,
No.
right? Like they're doing those evaluations to be like, she's crazy. I love it. Let's
Yeah.
get her on
Put
television.
her through.
Put her on, right? And I'm not saying Taylor Frankie Paul falls into that category at all. She does seem like a lovely woman. But
No,
I also
I
think
agree with
too,
that too. Like I do think she seems like mostly a good person. Like
yes. But if this brings any sort of mess, that's just good for ratings and that's just good
totally.
business, right? So,
But
but yeah,
that I would
very
also
interesting.
argue too is where like, and I might have made this point last week, but I think that's where I'm struggling with a lot of these shows anyways now. I think that's the problem when some of these shows are on for so long is like when they first start off, Bachelor, Love is Blind, like as an audience, as a viewer, right? It's really easy to kind of get behind what the end result is supposed to be of the show because it
Mhm.
is usually positive, right? On The Bachelor, it's like you're going to find your person and you're going to propose to them and pick them out of all of these other people. And on Love is Blind, it's like we're going to hide you behind these screens and hopefully you're going to match up with someone, right? And I think the first few seasons, you as a viewer, you're behind that, right? You're like, this is great. Like, look, it's people finding true love. But I think to your point, we just know this is how the entertainment industry works. Like as time goes on, that
Yeah.
as a concept gets old for people,
Yes.
right? And you
Yes.
have to
Yes.
start to find ways to make it more interesting. And I think,
Yeah.
that's what's getting harder. As much as I love, 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 love the Love is Blind format, I think it is getting harder for me to watch because of the point you just made. They could easily be screening out these sociopaths that they're putting on the show, or these very, very toxic individuals that are actually kind of going and in a lot of cases taking people that don't have as many issues and making them crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that for me is getting harder to watch, because
Yeah.
it's just like, to your point, you could have screened this person out. You chose not to, right?
Yes. Yes.
And same thing with Bachelor. Like, I don't even believe that Bachelor is producing the show in a way anymore to get the outcome of someone. Like every time,
No.
I'm not a Bachelor person anymore. I watched it again, maybe the first few years and lost interest, but I don't even remember seeing a headline recently of like any Bachelor Nation success story. I mean, I'm sure I'm wrong and
Rare.
for me in the comments on that, but like, is it really even that successful anymore? Like, all I
Well,
see is about them breaking up 3 months later, a year later, or I'm suing him now for abuse. Like, this is not turning out successful love stories.
okay, and not to go too deep on this, but my response is like taking Love Island, right? Because now you're in a Bachelor represents a certain demographic. Love Island is, I would say, 10 years shy of that, right? So you're really kind of, I would say, 18 to like 27. That's, I believe, again, come for me in the comments if 40 to 60-year-olds are watching Love Island. I'm sorry. But it's just an influencer house.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's literally, we should just call it Vibe House, because that's what it is. It's just getting a bunch of people in there who haven't, I'm sorry, probably, and I'm sure that, again, I'm sure there are some, right? But probably don't have like these big, bold careers that they're leaving to be on a television program for 3 months, right? Because they're also so young. So the gist of it is like, yeah, if I go on this thing and I prance around and I find love, that's great. But if I come out of this and I have now an influencer platform, and I've seen this happen again and again, where it's like Alandria, Nick, like even from this past
Totally.
season,
They're
right?
out
They are
there
showing
hustling.
up. They're showing up to college campuses, and people are like, ah, and I'm thinking, well, that's crazy. But then I have to be honest with you. If we're gonna rewind the tapes, okay, and go back to my college experience, and if Snooki or JWoww would have rolled up there from the Jersey Shore, we would have all done the same thing. So really, that is the same as far as the fame of it. But I
Yeah.
do think it's hard to use your term of suspending disbelief, right? Because it's like, I know that all of you kids are just here to hopefully be an influencer after this is
Yeah.
done. And I'm not
100%.
even clear why I would be following you really. And I think we've seen that too, because not this season of Love is Blind, but the previous season of Love is Blind, there was 3 girls. I think Leah, I don't remember the others two names, but it was like, oh man, they're going to be famous. They're going to capitalize on that. And here we
Totally.
are a year later, and it's like crickets. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure they still have a little bit of a presence on TikTok and stuff, but like, this is not turning out what I think that these large networks think that they're going to turn out anyway. So
Yeah.
maybe it's like the reverse could be, well, then let's just be authentic, right? Then let's go back to the original script. And I will say, last point on this, I remember growing up, it was probably scripted, Million Dollar Matchmaker with
Oh, yeah.
I
Patty
do think
Sanger. She's
that
still
was,
around, by the way.
she looks great.
Still alive and well. Shout out to Patty.
She every 10 years she goes in and gets something done where she just looks fantastic. But that show, what I loved about it was the whole premise was like, they also had women millionaires. It wasn't all men all the time,
That
right?
is
So the
true.
premise
I
the
did like
premise
that.
was, this person has money, these people don't.
Yep.
Go ahead and gold
Maybe
dig type of
connection.
thing. There were so many times where those women would get on those dates and they would be like, I'm out. 5 minutes in, I don't care, you're a millionaire, I am out. And there was something so authentic about watching that, where it's like, yeah, money can't buy everything. This is really what it would be like for you men who think, oh, I can be any age, go out there, and as long as I have a little bit of coin in my pocket, these women are going to be, no, because that show showed you very clear, you can have multiple millions of dollars and you still got to
Still.
have something interesting. So that's all to
Gotta have
say.
some Riz, man.
I'm sure Chris Martin has Riz. I'm sure he's got Riz because he's pulling some
Oh
baddies.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So
He has Riz. I mean, come on. I'm sure he's written. I'm sure he writes a song for every woman that he dates. I mean,
that might be his intro.
that's just
That's
you.
his first move. It was a
Well,
haiku.
the last little bit of celebrity news, I'm just gonna sum it up as David Harbour is a piece of shit.
Millie agrees.
I guess that's,
Whoops.
well, so we wanted to talk about this on the pod last week, and I totally slipped my mind. Lily Allen has released her first album in what, like over 2 decades or something crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we've had a Lily Allen album.
Yeah.
West End Girl. And it's
So
come
good, you
out.
guys.
This album is entirely about her relationship with David Harbour, which, I think it's interesting. I think the reason that there's even like connectivity for people right now with all of this is because their Architectural Digest video had
You're
gotten
right.
like some significant viewership at the time. I remember we talked about it when it first came out.
Yeah.
And now we're getting sort of the behind the scenes story on their relationship. But before we dive into that, now it's come out that Millie Bobby Brown has also basically ahead of filming, I guess, accused him of bullying and harassment. And I just think he needs to crawl into a hole and die now. I don't really
Yeah.
know how, it's interesting too, because I have not seen, I mean, I haven't really looked that hard, but I haven't seen anything from his team about any of this. I don't know
No.
if he's responded about the album. I don't
Yeah.
certainly think he's said anything about these allegations. So that will be very interesting to see if his PR actually comes out and tries to either curb this but I will say the timing of Millie's allegations is probably adding just more credibility to Lily Allen's album right now, I would imagine. If
Yeah.
anyone is skeptical about her stories, I think this has probably ended any of that
Yep.
skepticism.
Yep. And I think we do this type of thing, not we, but I think societally we do this type of thing where it's like, if your craft is good enough, you get passes. I mean,
Oh,
look at Louis
totally.
C.K. You know what I mean? And now Louis C.K. again, he can go with David into that hole as far as I'm concerned, right? But there are still people out there that mess with him
Yeah.
because they love his stand-ups from 20 years ago, right? They just cannot get over that. Your craft is not good enough to give you any sort of passes, David. I'm sorry.
Like a house of
And I don't believe in that, in the using the Louis C.K. I don't believe in giving people passes because they're so good at something. No, that's not how it works. So yeah, I say goodbye. I also think it's really interesting too, because this is sometimes even when we think about corporate theater, you can listen, the reality is karma is real in certain situations, but you will find as you move on in your life that you're going to meet some really bad people and nothing bad will ever happen to them. Hello world right now, right?
Yeah.
And so I do think the Millie thing is heartening because it's good to remind ourselves that even if you're not hearing it and seeing it, and even if this person for years isn't facing any consequences for their actions, that doesn't mean that it's not happening to other people. That doesn't mean that you're crazy. That doesn't mean that you're overreacting. It just means that that person is really good at covering their tracks or has a lot of people in their corner doing it. And some people get away with it until the day that they die.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so I think
truthfully, he probably will continue to be like
I'm
this
sure he will,
and get away with
unless
it.
something incredibly damning comes out. I would say my big takeaway from it, I don't know if Millie knows Millie and Lily, but it just kind of felt like a really girl advocating for girl moment that Millie said, yeah, I'm gonna let this story break as Lily album is out to
Totally.
let the world know this is legit.
Yeah.
That was a really cool thing to see.
It's interesting too, because for me, it's like just another vote for my own intuition, because I've always thought there was something off about him. I remember
agree.
like watching the first season of Stranger Things and being like, oh, he's really good in this role, but also something's off about this guy. And then like watching the AD thing, so okay, but
That's so weird that you say that. I've always felt that way. Like
Women's
Like it,
intuition is so real. It really, really is. Women, all female listeners out there, like
you know it to be
trust your
true.
intuition. If you think like something's off, it is. If you think
It is.
something off about a guy, you can't put your finger on it, don't stick around to find out,
I
honestly.
agree. I
Which
agree.
is so then getting into this album, that is sort of what Lily Allen did. She stuck around to find out and
Mhm.
sounds like stuck
She
around for
found
a
out a lot.
while, actually. So I think you've listened to this album too, right? Front to back. You've heard
I
the whole
did.
thing. Okay.
Yes.
Were you shocked listening to it? Like, I think that's where a lot of kind of, the buzz has been. It is incredibly revealing of things that happened in their relationship. And there is something so odd about listening to such personal details in an incredible pop song.
I know. It's like, give me more of this. One of the things I will say, and this is Nicole and I do this a lot, right? Where we'll hear something from one song and kind of relate it, or just because I think we love music more than, not more than anything in pop culture, but it's definitely at the top of our list. And so when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about my new band, Sleep Token. They have this little lyric. It's just, rather be 6 feet under than be lonely. And I was like, that is the thesis of
Of
the Lily album, right? Where it's like, okay, I'll accept because the alternative is giving away and moving on and letting go of this relationship, and I think we all get into that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, how vulnerable she is, how she's able to just put the word butt plug so seamlessly, and they're making that the first single as far as I know, Pussy Palace. So really interesting move there as well to say. And my read too, a little bit. We made a note last week that we're not necessarily Swifties. However, Lilith Fair, like, let's remember that we are here to tell stories. And I do think that Taylor Swift has opened the door a bit to this sort of lyricism that is coming back. And we see it in Chapel Roan too,
yeah,
right? We see it in people like Doechii,
yeah,
because it's permeating. Not
yeah, of
Doechii
course.
is her own person and has her own style and has for a
Yeah, but
decade
it's happening
too.
across all genres, is your
It's
point.
this deep storytelling, right?
Yeah,
Where
for
it's
sure.
like that anxiety song from Doechii is like, it is telling you a full story that then you can visualize in your brain. I love that. And I think that that's a lot of what you will find in this Lily album. I would say Pussy Palace, West End Girl, so the first song off of the album, and Ruminating, which is I think the second song off the album. Those three, if you're not the type of person that's just going to start from track one and go all the way to the end, at least give those three a try. She's saying a lot. And Ruminating is a little like postal servicey. It has that like that that constant kind of it feels like almost like flickering lights, but it's lyrical or it's musical in some way. But
Yeah.
yeah, and it moves through the whole song and it keeps it pushing, and it's really good. So I'm so excited for her for coming and using.
Yeah, we
Uh,
definitely listened to Lily Allen like growing
oh
up.
my God, we did.
I think we were,
You did.
I was pretty big into her. What is interesting though is she is also a controversial figure in her own right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, you kind of have to wonder with this relationship with David Harbour. Like, sometimes bad people find each other, right? And I think like she's not someone that has an uncomplicated past. I think like there's been a lot of things resurfacing that I honestly had forgotten about. Like she had dressed up as a gyno one year to troll Kesha about the whole Dr. Luke thing. So she's like 100%
Lily.
sided with like, kind of known just terrible people in the past.
She took a
So it does make you wonder as you're like listening to the album. It's just like, okay, this happened. This guy is terrible, but also like, what about you? And I'm not saying that to like, I never want to like blame the woman for something that happens in a relationship, right? But I do kind of question how she got into this relationship,
yeah.
how it started. Um, why she thought he was a good person to kind of like carry on with. It is interesting.
Yeah.
And I do think that's the only thing right now the conversation seems to be skipping over. It's like, oh, like this happened to her. And like, it's like, yeah, but Lily Allen has a pretty, I don't know, listeners, you need to look it up, but like she's not a perfect angel, shall we say.
Right.
And so
Right.
I do think, that part is something that we have to keep in mind. Now, the
Well,
album
I think about,
itself,
sorry.
oh no, I was just gonna say I would recommend listening front to back. I think the three songs that you called out are great. But it does tell a complete story, I think, if you listen to it
Yes.
front to back. So I would recommend doing that. It's very raw. I think the main question I was having listening to it, it's like, if I was an artist, like, would I even want to reveal this level of detail to people? I think
Mhm.
that is brave, but I
Mhm.
also just personally, I'm not sure if it's a choice I'd be making.
I completely agree because I think also you set yourself up for people to be on the other, not to be on his side necessarily, but to be on the side of there are naturally people who are going to say, well, you entered into the open
Yeah.
relationship. You willfully signed up for that, right? Or from what we
Well, she's
understand.
even implying in one of the songs that she didn't really want to buy that house and it was him pressuring
I
her to spend the money. So even that,
know.
like, you're like, oh, that's a choice you made. Like,
I couldn't believe that. I
that was
was like,
crazy.
that's deep.
But it
That's
does
really
make
deep.
sense. I think that was the thing that I found so weird about that video was like, her, first of all, like, this is gonna sound so mean, but I like love hearing celebrities use normal people words. So like in the song where she talks about the house, I think there's a line where she says like we went and got the mortgage.
She
And I'm
does.
like, this is the most accurate part that you two needed a mortgage
A
because that was
mortgage.
the thing that was so not believable about that AD video. I'm like, with everything we know about you and you, how did the two of you have the money to not only purchase this property, but redo it to the level that you redid it? And now we have the answer. They didn't. They didn't
They
have the
didn't.
money. He was forcing her to over leverage herself to get it.
I
I
mean,
just that cracked me up.
we're talking like the purchase, right? Not to get into, I don't know their finances, but yeah, I mean, you're talking the purchase, the mortgage, the everything, and then the redoing of that per the AD article, I would say 300 grand, if not more, maybe even maybe in the million. I don't know. So yeah, it's like you were a theater actor, you've been on one show, and it's been 20 years since you've made an album. Where are we getting? Oh, we're going to the bank. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay. And I think that's important for all of us to also remember.
Yeah, totally.
Keep that in mind as you move through your life, and make comparisons that even the haves sometimes don't have it the way that we
Oh,
suspect. So
no, definitely no. So, I mean,
no.
we'll see. I think that she's going to continue to get success as she drops the singles. I will say for me personally, and this is an outstanding question, we'll have to check in on this over the next few weeks. I think because of how personal the nature is, the main thought I had after finishing it was like, I just don't, because what a lot of people are saying is this is like the most epic breakup album that we've had in a while, right? And I
Okay.
think the level of honesty for sure. I just was trying to think though about like the breakup songs that you and I grew up listening to or the albums that we would reach for. Like, my example, I've probably listened to Amy Winehouse's Back to Black 100,000 times in college, having like volatile relationships. That was
Right.
the album I would reach for every single time I would go through a breakup or something like that. I think with West End Girl, I just question like how often you're gonna reach for an album like that, Like
Yeah.
I agree on the surface it's a great breakup album, but like is it a timeless breakup
Breakup
album?
album.
I'm not so sure. I think that's for me where I'm struggling is like, what is my repeat listening going to look like for this?
I was already thinking about that because for me, and this is just a personal, because I also know people out there love Charlie XX, so XCX. So
Does sound like Charlie XCX, I will say that.
it
Ruined
gives
Evening
me a
for
bit
sure.
of that. It
Ruined Evening
does.
is Charlie XCX.
And for me, that was my issue with that album was the first listen, right? I was like, okay, yeah. And then, driving in the car, I'm like, Apple, I'm cruising, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. 3 weeks in, I'm like, I don't know if I don't, that's, now I'm done. I've heard that before, right? There is just certain music that to me is more timeless and that I do reach for again and again. I'm trying to think of exactly what would be an example of that in the last couple of years. I'm spacing a bit. I'm gonna have to come back to that,
It's
like,
fine.
yeah, what do I go back to?
We're all just reaching for things that, even Gen Z, they love our millennial music. So, well,
I
I
gotta
think,
say, wait, quick last thing on that, and I know we're gonna jump to something else before we end, but think, how moments bring that into clarity. So I'll give you a quick example.
yeah,
I had to get an MRI, right? And an MRI, for anyone who's ever had to get one, it's the most unfun thing in the whole entire world. I mean, you are in a tube, your nose is this close, there's a sound going on, you
not
feel
a
like
good,
you're getting buried alive. And so they give you these headphones and they ask you, like, what do you want to listen to? Right. Because it's going to just play a Spotify playlist of that artist, and I'm lying there and I'm like, Drake. just just hit me
break me.
with views, just hit me with a take care. I don't care
Something
what
you
it
can get
is.
lost in because you know every word.
Just something I know the lyrics to and I can keep moving,
Yeah.
So yeah,
It,
anyway.
I mean, yeah, it's we'll see. We'll see. I'll be curious once she starts to drop some of these music videos.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I think, we're almost at time, but I did want to discuss with you another kind of topic that's been, I don't know, at least for me, I can't seem to escape it on Instagram right now, not TikTok, because I feel like every day I'm seeing a new post about it. But sure you also saw there's this article in Vogue that has been going viral. And it was an opinion piece. It was written last week, and the title of it is having a boyfriend embarrassing now?
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, what the article talks about is that there has been a recent or, recent ish shift in how women are approaching talking about their partners, sharing their partners on social media, or rather not. And it just really seems like this is like a new kind of attitude right now where people are not as interested in seeing content creators' personal lives or
Right.
hearing about their boyfriends. It's a real turnoff. So I thought I'm going to read just one paragraph from the article that I thought was interesting. We can use this as a jumping off point. So it just says, so what gives? Are people embarrassed by their boyfriends now, or is something more complicated going on? And this is the author of the article talking. To me, it feels like the result of women wanting to straddle two worlds, one where they can receive the social benefits of having a partner, but also not appear so boyfriend obsessed that they come across as quite culturally loserish. And then there's a quote here from an activist. They want the prize and celebration of partnership, but understand the norminess of it. In other words, in an era of widespread hetero fatalism, which is a whole other conversation, that word, women don't want to be seen as being all about their man, but they also want the clout that comes with being partnered. And I think that, for me at least, sums up my initial gut reaction when I started seeing people talk about this article, right? Is that, yes, maybe that is sort of the feeling or the vibe. But to me, sort of the thing that again makes all of these types of conversations so hypocritical is exactly the point that the author makes there. There is still a desire by women to be partnered up and to use that as a social status type of tool that you have to hold over people, truthfully, right?
100%.
I mean, and I think, like, if we're being honest, I think all women do that. I think, like, I'm guilty of that. You're probably guilty of that. I think it's a natural kind of thing that occurs because we're living in the society that we live in, right? Like, we are in a patriarchy at the end of the day. And I think we kind of have to accept that even if it's uncool right now to have a boyfriend, to have a husband, to have a partner, that is never going to wipe out women's desire to still reach that and use that as a status symbol. So
Yeah,
it is an
I
interesting
totally
dichotomy.
agree.
for sure.
I was gonna double check because I too screenshotted a quote. Um, where being single was once a cautionary tale that you'll end up a spinster with a load of cats, it is now becoming a desirable and coveted status, another nail in the coffin of a centuries old heterosexual fairy tale that never really benefited women to begin with. This has not reached suburbia, y'all. This is not true. I'm sorry. Let me see one more time here, just this line. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Where being single was once a cautionary tale, it is now becoming a desirable and coveted status. No, no, it's not. No, it's
Well,
not.
so
And
okay,
don't
so
and
to
don't
that
believe
point,
them.
how much of this do you think is how people really feel? And how much of it do you think is a reframing of women's reality? Meaning,
I
in
agree.
this,
Yeah.
I live in New York City. There are a lot of single women here, right?
Mhm.
That is the case in a lot of urban areas. And even if you look at statistics across the country, women are the most unmarried and unpartnered that we've ever been, right? Like even in the suburbs. So do you think that this is truly deeply how women feel, or is it a convenient reframing of the reality that most women face in not being able to find what they view as, you know, eligible partners?
I think this is how some women want to feel. I think that this is, for some, a dream state where we recognize that we want love or we want a partner, however that looks, because this is specifically this article I do want to note, both in the title and throughout, is talking about heterosexual
Yes,
relationships.
we
So we
should
do
be
just want
clear.
to say
Well, obviously, hopefully for our listeners, it's inherent in the
you
boyfriend,
can read through the lines,
but we
right?
do, yes,
But
we are talking about
yes,
relationships right now.
and I think and to say it's another nail in the coffin of a centuries old heterosexual fairy tale. I think what this author is getting to is that maybe there is a set of women in society who want to believe that this is where we are now, that we are so far on the feminism journey that in fact the fairy tale is laughable and not even something that we would want anymore. I don't think that that's true. And I don't think that that's true simply from I'm a woman and I want a man. That's not how I view it. I view it as we are human, and as humans we crave connection. And yes, can sometimes there are people out there who can get enough of that connection through community and through friendship, for sure. I would say the vast majority of us humans crave it from a one-on-one monogamous relationship. And we're even seeing this, I don't have the numbers in front of me, right? But there was a time that I think we were talking a lot about, like, monogamy is dead. Like, I remember a couple of years ago a lot of articles around that, right? And now I see that pendulum shifting with the trad wife rise,
Yeah,
right? That it's like, no, in fact humans are built for monogamous relationships, and it's the pansexuality that actually is the fairy tale, right? So I think that there's a lot, and I'm not claiming to believe one way or another. I'm just kind of putting out what I'm seeing. So
yeah,
I think, yes, I think this article is someone writing fiction about a dream state of feminism. And to put it, that's a brash, but yes, I think it's a reframing.
yeah.
And I would say, not don't fall for it, right? Because everyone, you consume what you want to consume, and everyone should be really smart about what they take from it. Okay. And think about it for a while, read it a couple of times before you make your own decision here. But it is things like this where, yeah, I feel like it got gobbled up really fast. It was
Yeah,
all over my TikTok.
yeah,
It was a lot of, and I agree, and this is it. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I don't see this at all and reflected in my life. And I know single people, and I know married people, and I know people in relationships, and I don't see anyone talking about how embarrassing it is to have a partner. I think
yeah,
a lot of people I know feel incredibly blessed to have found a partner who's
yeah.
willing to work with them, compromise, and build a home.
Well, and they even hinted that in the article, right? That like even some of these content creators that have decided to not show their partners at much, it's because they don't want to appear as boastful for having been blessed
Mm,
enough to find their person. I
Yeah.
do think that some of this is being born out of a core truth, and I started to think about it a little bit more deeply because I saw a clip. I really enjoy Professor Scott Galloway. If you guys don't follow him, he has like a number of like business podcasts, but he also
Yep.
is I enjoy him mostly when he's out there talking about young men and what is happening to men in society. And I think that he has some pretty good takes on that, especially because he's a man. He
Hmm.
has two sons, and so I think he's speaking obviously from lived experience. And I saw a clip of him, I think he was on The View recently, and he was talking about just the imperative as a society for things that we should be doing to make it easier on men. And his big point was by making these things easier for men, that will inevitably have the trickle down effects to women via like improved relationships, improved family dynamics, and things like that. But one of the points he makes that I think is true, and I think this is to a certain extent where this article is being teased out from, is he made the point that ultimately unpartnered women are doing just fine, right? He said, you get to a certain point in your life and you're in your late 30s, early 40s, you're unmarried. He said, the reality is, look at the statistics, those women, they're doing okay. Now, that's not to say like they're not lonely or they're not still desiring a partnership, but his point being, economically, they're doing fine. They take all of that excess energy, income, whatever it is that they're not putting into a partner, and they put it into their friend circles, they put it into their family, they use it to really strengthen their lives. And he was saying the difference for young men is it's completely the opposite. It makes them more addicted to porn, more misogynistic, more susceptible to dangerous narratives and things like that. And the bigger point
Hmm.
he was making is it is way, way, way more important for men to have partners than it is for women to have partners. And so I
Yeah.
do think that that reality allows an article like this to be written, right? Because if women were doing terribly without men right now, you would not be seeing this article being written right now. There's no way that having
Yeah.
a boyfriend would be viewed as cringe. I think part of why we're able to have this conversation, or even the cultural zeitgeist is able to shift into a place of it being cringe, is because women are doing fine without men. I think that's
Mhm.
just factual, right? Like,
Mhm.
it, and again, it doesn't mean that, we've reached all of our emotional goals and all of our life goals, but we're not stagnant. We're not breaking down and not living our lives just because we haven't found our person, right?
I agree.
So I
Yeah.
think that for me is what I've been thinking about a lot with this article, is like how much of it too is coming out of a core truth, right?
Yeah.
That we
Yeah.
don't need men in the same way. But I think, to go back to some of your comments, that's where I do think this type of messaging is very dangerous for us on a society level. Because I think, to go back to what you were saying about like just this is what we need as humans, that's what any successful society needs, right? Like you need people to partner up, you need people to make the decisions to live life together. It is going to be better for you overall. And so I think, I think it's an easy message to deliver because objectively speaking, women are getting by without men. But where I
Yeah.
think it's dangerous is, and obviously you have kids, I don't, but if I did, it's not exactly something I think I'd want to be passing on to my daughter, to say like that this isn't something you should strive for, right?
Right.
Or,
Right.
oh, it's cringe or it's gross to want a man or to
Right.
rely on a man.
Yeah.
I think that's where we've done women a disservice, truthfully. And so I think in
Oh,
some ways this like perpetuates a message that I actually think is really dangerous to women to a certain extent. Because we're living through this moment now where all of these women are making this choice, or some, in some cases it's not a choice, right? It's just this is how your life is going. You're still looking for your person, right? But I think what we have to remember is like we are in a grand experiment with that
mhm.
right now. And the reality is like none of us know what it's going to feel like 10 years from now, 15
Mhm.
years from now, 20 years
Mhm.
from now, 30
Mhm.
years from now. And we could speculate, and I think like you have your opinions about that, I have my opinions about that. But I do think that's the part for me that's a little bit concerning, to be telling young women this, because that
Really.
might be true of their current lives, right now, this moment, even the next 10 years of their lives. But are you going to feel that way in your 50s? Are you going to feel that way in your 60s? I think
Right.
that's a hard thing when you're young to think that long term. But you might be having a different opinion at that stage of your life about whether or not it's cringe to be with a man or not.
I agree. And I do think that one of the things, two things. No man and no woman are going to be perfect. They are going, if you make the decision to be with someone, that person is going to take from you. That's the
Yeah.
reality, because there are going to be days where, yeah, they stress you out, they disappoint you. We are all humans, we are all fallible. You are not perfect, so your partner will not be perfect. And I think that that's another fallacy that we're a little bit seeing a lot too, where it's like, oh man, like I'm just realizing like my mom must have really settled when she married my dad, right? Like there is no perfect man out there. And it's like, yeah, but your mom wasn't perfect either. You know, like your dad also met your mom halfway. Right? I'm generalizing, right? So I think we need to kind of come back to that it's not about it's only embarrassing if you're letting someone take more than they're giving,
Yeah.
right? That's when it gets embarrassing, okay? When you're in a one-sided relationship where you are filling into a cup that has no bottom, you
Totally.
know? And that's that gauge, but it is not fundamentally embarrassing to love and be loved. Let's not ever get that into anyone's head. It's that is the spice and the joy of life. And if we start to categorize that as cringe, we're lost.
Well, what's
So
left? What's
what's
left then?
left?
I don't understand. Like a relationship with your phone for the rest of your life, you
You
know?
know,
And
searching
again,
for
it,
perfection.
it's not to say you can, of course, have a fulfilling life without a partner. Like I do believe that. Like just
100%.
to be very clear with our listeners, like I don't think that, if a woman decides not to be partnered or cannot find her partner, that means she doesn't get to live a fulfilling life or a happy life, different strokes for different folks, right? And I think, now more than ever, you can build a fulfilling life without a partner. But I don't think it's something, again, that we should be messaging to young women right now to say, ew, ew, gross. Like,
Right.
you're trying to, the truth of it is too, as you kind of hinted earlier, like we're living in a crazy world. Everything's getting harder. Everything that you have to do as a human is harder than ever before. Why would you want to do it alone if you don't have
I
to?
agree. I
I just
agree.
think it's nice to have someone to share not even the burden with. Sometimes it's just like nice to have someone to commiserate with. Like,
Totally.
wow, this is crazy. Here's some other new thing I never thought could happen to me,
Totally.
the difference of going through those types of moments in life by yourself versus with someone else, I think are definitely, different. But I don't know. It is interesting. I think the way this article is taken off is also fascinating to me. Like I just the number of reels and TikToks and things that I've seen. I think the thing that, I don't want to discount in this conversation is, you know, a lot of this is being driven by the fact, I think, that women look out into the dating world and they are struggling to find partners that they feel are worthy, right? And I do think that is a very real phenomenon that is happening. And if that is, again, making it easier for people to then reframe it as like you gross because it's something you can't attain, if that's something that makes you feel better, then go for it, right? But
Agreed.
I do think that it is rooted in a true place for sure, and I think that's to go back to Scott Galloway. I think that's where like I don't want women to go so far down this messaging and this rabbit hole that we lose all desire to help men, right?
Yeah.
And I
Oh
think
my God.
there's so much rhetoric out there that, talks about, well, why is it our responsibility to help men and they need to help themselves? And like, sure, that is 100% true. Like men should be able to take accountability for their own lives in the same way that women do. But I also think that, going back to the human point, I believe as women, we should want men to succeed.
Mhm.
and I think that is sort of the undercurrent of some of these articles that I'm struggling to relate to. It's like I
Yep.
can acknowledge the challenges that women face in the dating market because I face them myself. But where it starts to turn a corner for me is into sort of this, let's just say, like man hatred kind of arena, right? And I think that's really dangerous. I think
Yeah.
like, I think women's success and women's happiness is going to involve men, even if it's not you personally having a partner, like men are part of society. And I think we're,
Eh,
as women, allowed to have opinions about how men navigate through society, how they could do it better, how they could stop perpetuating certain things in society that are dangerous to women. Like we can have that conversation all day long, right? But let's also acknowledge that men are challenged in certain areas, that some of the reasons that they are challenged are things outside of their control, that some of it has been kind of exacerbated by the media and by certain conversations that we're having. And I think instead of continuing to go so far into the territory of let's just leave men behind because women are totally cool, we have our cats and we don't need anything else, like why don't we have more of the conversation of like how we can help men get to back on the track, right? And so that's
yeah.
where I love the Scott Galloway stuff. I think one of the most interesting things that he said, as a specific point to help men actually is
Wait, can I say it?
what? Universal family care.
Oh, no.
That's
Okay,
his
go. You say
number
it.
one sticking point. And I think, again, that is an issue that gets associated with women as if like women are the ones that need that support, right? But he was making the point like, no, like men will be able to thrive more if you as a
Yes.
family are receiving more support overall for things like childcare. And, so I think that's more of like the conversations I wish we were having. And I think that is actually much more of a feminist viewpoint to be saying, oh, the main way we help men is through universal family care. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to have those conversations, right?
Yeah.
Like how can
And I have a real world example of what you were talking about. My friend, my dear friend, her husband works in tech. Recently has moved into manager role, and has two direct reports that are women. And this is exactly what you're touching on, right? Which is my friend could be silent, and be like, ugh, like whatever, he doesn't get it, rolling her eyes. What is she doing? She's jumping in. He's coming to her and saying, okay, say her name is Jocelyn. It's not,
yeah,
right? But like Jocelyn came to me in this one-on-one and she's feeling like Jason in this department is really breathing down her neck and she's looking at David and Jason isn't breathing down David's neck and
yeah,
she's feeling, and my friend is diving and as a first-time manager in his early 30s, right? That is the education he's getting at home that is
yeah,
now going to translate into every single manager job he has as he becomes 40 and 50 and 60.
yeah,
And to remember, oh, that's right, I learned way back when with my wife, we believe women, we listen to women, we always hear them out, right? We carve out space in a one-on-one or be it another avenue in a remote world, right? To hear them out. So yeah, I think if we just throw our hands in the air and say, I don't even want to deal with it, we're
yeah.
missing those organic opportunities to build a world that will be better for everyone. For my daughter, when that man is her first boss, and she's dealing with someone who's enlightened, who listened to his wife, who, heeded good advice. And so that's what partnership really is. So I
Yeah.
completely agree with all your sentiments.
And I think, the last thing I'll say too is, and again, everyone is entitled to their opinions, but I think the thing that women need to think about, because again, I've seen so often when people make the point of like, well, why do we need to help men? Like they should, okay, but are you a woman that's planning on being a mother?
Mhm.
Because you have a 50-50 chance of having a son, and you are going to raise that son in the same world that we are currently living in. So, do you want to raise your son in a world where society has said men suck, they've fallen behind, too bad, we women, we're just going to keep forging ahead, leave the men behind? Or do you want to raise your son in a society where we are acknowledging that maybe men are struggling for different reasons, different
Right.
factors, and we're doing things to correct that? So I would encourage women to think beyond just your own dating moment or your own, journey for looking for a partner, and think about the other things that have yet to happen in your life. Like, that's where sometimes like this argument gets so tough for me, because it's like, okay, like I understand that you hate the men that you're having to date, but what about your nephew? What
Right.
about, the kid in your apartment that you play aunt to? What about,
Right.
like we can't just start dismissing half of the population, right? And
And
I
we've
I
seen
just don't
other
see enough
countries
of
do
that
that.
conversation coming, and it's more of these types of articles. And again, I'm sensitive to what women face, but I think like let's have more productive conversations about why men are so challenged and what we collectively can do to change things, right?
100%. 100%. And the last thing that I will say is that I think it was a year ago, an article, I believe it was the New York Times. Again, in the comments, if you know the article that I'm speaking of, please link it. But it was basically just talking about how maybe we should be thinking about starting young boys later for
Yes,
school, right?
love those types of
But
ideas.
and so for me, that's an idea, okay? Was out on the playground at a play date that I had for my daughter, and I was talking to another mom, and we were just talking about my daughter recently started public school. And she was just saying, yeah, my son's 4, but everything I'm reading, I'm not going to start him. I'm going to let him be at his daycare. And then I'm going to wait until that 5 age range, put him right into TK, kind of right into K, skip the TK because he's not ready for that. And I was thinking to myself, like, oh, that's so great to hear that those studies are actually being now they're
Yeah.
trickling down into the real world, and we're seeing this actually be applied to say we can make changes that
Yes.
will affect future generations in a positive way. And the payoff is what? That kid is still going to be 18 when they graduate high school, right? They'll just be on
100%.
the older end of 18. There's really, but the trade-offs in the beginning are huge from what we're
100%.
seeing.
And
So
these
I
I
agree.
that is such a great example, because I've seen a lot of studies on that too. Those are the types of practical things that I think we need to be spending more time thinking about, because to your
Yeah.
point, like it's going to have a minimal impact maybe in the beginning, but
Upfront.
longer term you're setting up that young kid for much more success in life.
Yes.
And I think last thing too, what you hit on there as well, and this is like again the fundamental kind of thing that drives me crazy with a lot of these articles and a lot of these types of conversations. I do think there is a part of women that just wants men to be women,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not.
We
They're
don't want them to be.
they're not.
Not
But
really.
but 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 that's how some of this stuff starts to sound to me, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's like a frustration with that reality, right? And the thing is like they're never going to be like us. Like there are just hard truths that I think we've gotten away from or have become too politicized to even talk about, which is unfortunate. We are just different. We are
Yeah.
very different people. Like
Yeah.
we women have hormones running through us that change every single day of the month. Men are running on a constant, steady stream of testosterone. All like their month looks exactly the same. Like, I think if we talked about those differences more too, it would help in this larger conversation.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to like the practical ideas of like young boys and young girls are different. Maybe young boys should start school later, right? Like that actually is being sensitive to that reality, and honoring it, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's sort of the thing that's missing for me in a lot of these, like, who wants a man? It's not cool to have a man because men suck and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, men also aren't women. So, well, this was such a fun one. I think we
It
kind of
was
went
so
like
fun.
over our time, but I mean,
No,
okay, right? Like,
yeah, and I've been
we're not
really
trying to
wanting
stay
to.
rigid with this. So sorry,
No,
listeners, getting a little extra this week. But thank you so much
people.
for joining us. We had so much fun. The second episode, Rhinestoned. We really need to like start to, I think flesh out. Yeah, we need like one of those like cool intros or something
I
like
agree.
that. We
We're
have
gonna
to
work
figure
on
that out.
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
and
gonna
then a
work on
couple of
that.
just Listener notes, please share wherever you can. That would be really appreciative. If you would like to leave us any comments, we will be responding. And the only other thing to say is that we recently got our Spotify up and running. Yay! So we'll be double posting both on YouTube and on Spotify. And this week we will be standing up Instagram and TikTok just so that you guys can see clips and get access to our show really easy.
I'll
through
finally
different
have to use
platforms.
TikTok. Yeah, if
I
you're listening
know.
on YouTube, please leave us comments about Lily Allen's album. Any thoughts on Dakota Johnson and Chris Martin? I mean, really just anything we've talked about. We'd love to hear it. And of course, any ideas you have or topics that you want us to discuss on next week's episode.
So fun, sister. I love
Um,
you.
I love you too.
I'll see you
I'll
next
see you
week.
next week.
Okay.
Jinx.
You owe me a coat.
Okay.
Bye.